Hi everybody, welcome to Saturday Live at the Backyard Bird Center. Maybe a little more sense of normality to the Saturday Live this week. You know, we're kind of getting back things as crazy as they are. I mean, without a doubt, one of the most popular feeder birds of the spring is the Baltimore Oriole. Absolutely loved by many people, including my wife. She loves the Orioles when they're coming to the feeders. At this point, we still haven't seen one at our feeders yet, but we're getting reports from all over the area, so they are coming in. Every night that there's a southern wind at this time of year, it brings in more of these birds from the south, and so I know they've been kind of stacking up down south because they've had a lot of north wind, like today. But these birds are coming in, and they'll be coming in the next couple of weeks. So what I thought we'd do with this program today is twofold. One is teach you about Orioles, and then we'll talk about attracting Orioles and what are the secrets and kind of the history of that and what you can do to maybe improve your luck at attracting Orioles in your yard. So first off, I want to talk about the bird, the Baltimore Oriole, and its relatives, the Orchard Oriole, which you can get to come. We'll have a picture of that here in just a minute. But did you know, most people don't realize that Orioles are actually members of the blackbird family. And some of those birds that you don't like so much. We love Baltimore Orioles, but a lot of people don't like common grackle. So, hold on. Gotta grab my iPad here. So yes, the Baltimore Oriole is related to the common grackle. The blackbirds, long-tailed, mean, aggressive. People don't like them at their bird feeders, but they are in that same family as the common grackle. They are also in the same family as the red-winged blackbird, which makes a little more sense. And this is where the kind of the biology lesson is. I want you to, color is so misleading in birds that you think that because a bird looks like another bird, they have to be, cousins. Well, no. What you look for is structure, and for the most part. Look at the bill on that red-winged blackbird, and look at the bill on this female Baltimore Oriole. Basically the same bill as the red-winged blackbird. Now grackles have a little more stout bill, but the body shape of Orioles are the same as these blackbirds. So they are members of the blackbird family, which is really cool. And they are our Baltimore Orioles are neotropic migrants. They do travel to the southern hemisphere or Central America. A lot of times the Yucatan Peninsula, that area down there in Mexico, and spend their winters where there is ample food during the winter months, because they are primarily an insect eater and a fruit eater and a nectar eater. So when they have to go to where they can find that in the winter, and then they work their way back south, from the south up north, and we're getting them. They're rolling in the area now, and they are looking for places to nest. I love this picture because it is so illustrative of what these birds are looking for when they return to the area. They usually time their return. Their return is whenever trees are blooming and flowers are blossoming. And there's twofold there. One is they eating the nectar out of those flowers, but they're also eating the insects that are attacking those new flowers and pollinating those new flowers. So they have the ample food. And when they come into the area, timing is everything for feeding them, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But they're looking for places that are going to provide enough nesting food for their babies, because they want to build their. Where's my nest? My not sock picture. Did I somehow leave that out? I think my picture got corrupted, unfortunately. Sorry. I had a great picture of an Oriole nest in here, but they didn't. They build their sock nest out toward the ends of limbs, and so that whenever a raccoon or a predator comes out there to try to get to their nest, to get to their babies. It's out at the end of the limb, and it won't support the weight of the raccoon. So that's why you see those long sock nests hanging from the ends of limbs. That's where they like to nest. Now they're primarily a bird of wet woodlands, the riparian corridors we call them, along rivers and streams. They love cottonwood trees and they love sycamore trees. But that has to do because those are the two dominant trees along wet woodlands. That's where those trees primarily grow. But they do like those trees for nesting. Like English Landing Park down in Parkville has loaded with cottonwood trees and sycamore trees, and they have lots of Baltimore Orioles in the spring. You can hear them singing. If you walk that trail or run down there, you'll hear Baltimore Orioles singing a long time. People ask about their song, and the best description I have for you is it sounds like a human who can whistle very loud. They have a very human-like whistle into their song, and they chatter and they do different communication things. But once you learn that song, you know it. When they turn up in the spring in your backyard, you hear that song. It's pretty unmistakable, and people know their Orioles have returned. So they're showing up now, and if you're lucky, they will stay and nest in your yard. And one of the primary criteria for them nesting are big, tall trees. So if you live in a neighborhood that has young trees, it's a new neighborhood, your chances of getting them nesting are not very good. You live in an older and established neighborhood with lots of old trees, that's who have the luck with Orioles nesting in their yard or close by. Now, I say this, but we used to live in a neighborhood that had one big cottonwood tree in the whole neighborhood, and everything else was very young. And we had Orioles nesting in that one big cottonwood tree. So they do love those trees. So, but if you don't have them nesting in your yard, that means you'll probably only get them coming to your feeders in the early part of spring, from now until they've got their nest established. And once they're out nesting, they switch their diet almost exclusively to insects when they're feeding the babies and for themselves. Now, those who have them nesting very, very close during the nesting season, those Orioles those adults will come down and get a quick hit of the jelly for energy, and and then go back and feed the babies, mainly the insects. But there are other birds that eat the jelly too. We have a lot of birds that like that jelly. So once you put your jelly feeder out, you'll get activity on it from other species as well. I did a whole nother program called the Jelly Birds, which is on my website or on my Vimeo page. You can look up and watch that Jelly Bird video. But today we're just talking mainly about the Orioles. So, how do you attract Orioles, and what birds, what are the Orioles that we can get? We have two species here, but I've got a couple of sneaky ones in here that I want you to be looking for if you have good Oriole activity on your feeders. So, what happened to my picture? I don't know what's going on there. Okay, so the origin of feeding Orioles. Well, probably the first thing that happened was we had Baltimore Orioles, these big, bright black and orange birds landing on hummingbird feeders. And people were going, oh my goodness, what is that beautiful bird out there on my hummingbird feeder? And here's a good illustration of it. So the first Oriole feeders probably were the nectar feeders. They studied them a little bit more. They found out that the Oriole nectar is usually 6-to-1 instead of 4-to-1. And they created feeders for them that had bigger openings because they had a hard time getting their tongue into the hummingbird feeders because the opening were so small. And of course they made them orange instead of red because they do like orange nectar so much. So the original Oriole feeders are like these nectar feeders, and some people still do just exclusively offer up the nectar for their for their Orioles. And if you have an Oriole feeder that have open ports, the hummingbirds will drink from them as well. So that was kind of the initial start. And then back to this picture, the people who live along in the southern states, along the border of Mexico, and the southern Texans and Arizonas and places like that have fruiting trees in their yard, grapefruit trees, lemon trees, orange trees. Notice these birds, Orioles, were eating on the fruit that had fallen to the ground and things, and were pecking at the pulp. And so they would start cutting up the old fruit and stopping it on limbs So the Orioles would eat that pulp out of those oranges and grapefruits and lemons, and you can offer those up in your yard. And there's many ways to do that. This is just kind of an improvised feeder, and we have this one, which this where you can stob several orange halves on it, and the Orioles will eat on it. And some people just stob orange halves or orange quarters on limbs that are in their yard and are landscaping. I have a couple of friends who tack in finishing nails across their deck railing and just stab the oranges along that. So the Orioles will come to the orange halves along their deck railing. So there's many ways to offer up the fruit to them. And you can put lemons out there. You can put old grapefruits out there. You can do any of that citrus, and the Orioles will eat on that. Now, I don't know what the exact origin was of the grape jelly, but yes, Carrie, this is your picture. She takes pride in her pictures showing up in my videos. She loves it. This is a female Baltimore Oriole, and whoever started the grape jelly thing really started something, because the Orioles absolutely love the grape jelly. Now, a lot of questions about grape jelly, and there's some concerns about the safety of grape jelly in birds. There's two main safety factors. One is smaller birds actually getting into jelly and maybe getting it on their feathers, and then it weights them down too much so they can't fly. Things like chickadees and nuthatches that are smaller. I've had people actually have to rescue a bird that had gotten too much jelly on it and bring it in, wash it off in the sink, and take it out and let it go. So offering up a lot of open jelly can also be concerning for smaller birds. So you kind of have to be cautious with that. But the main safety thing about jelly right now is the high fructose corn syrup. Some of the studies that are coming out now are linking these high sweet jellies with bumblefoot, which is a disease in birds, and Orioles. So they're asking and asking people not to feed the high fructose corn syrup jellies. Get jellies that are more natural. No artificial sweeteners. You don't want artificial sweetener jellies. You want ones that have real grapes in them, and no high fructose corn syrup if you can. So they love them. So we have a female Baltimore Oriole here, and here's another of Carrie's pictures, but this is a young male. You notice how his head feathers are not completely black yet. He's still maturing. He's still molting into that. An early spring picture with the red bud there. So, but the adult males are so unmistakable. Let's go back to this picture that Rick took. Just a fully molted, beautiful adult male, bright orange, bright black, and they are absolutely gorgeous birds. And again, they come in and they start their nesting process as soon as they can, once they get back here and get established. And they only nest one time. They nest once per season. And then they are one of our earlier fall migrators. Adult males tend to pull out by mid-July from our area. The females a little later than that, and then the young linger on a little bit longer because they're kind of reluctant to leave. They don't know what's going on yet. But people will go, wait a minute, my Orioles came back. No, they didn't come back. The birds that we see later in August and even September are northern migrants, birds that nested much further north, started much later in nesting, and they are passing through our area on their way south. So you will, like I said, once you get, they bring their young in a little bit in July, after early July, especially once they're out and fledged, and they teach their young where the free food is. But by late July, after that, the number you greatly reduce the number you see, and then you see a resurgence of them later in the fall. So that's the migration pattern. So the other birds that we can see, and the other Orioles in this family that we see, the only one we see is the Orchard Oriole, and you can look at that and how brilliant rusty red that is versus that orange of the Baltimore Oriole. The Orchard Oriole is a little bit smaller, but pattern-wise, it looks just like a Baltimore. These birds like willow areas, really wet areas. So if you have a pond or real wet area where there's willows growing around it, that's a great place to look for Orchard Orioles. But they will come to the grape jelly and the oranges in the spring as well. So we do see them. And one of the most confusing things about Orchard Orioles is the young males. This is a first-year male orchard oriole, where the adult looks completely different. This is a young male, and he looks like the female in coloration. He's that more olivey green color, but instead the female would not have this black chin. So first year male will have this black chin here, but a really olivey yellow body to them, and they'll show up at feeders as well, and that usually prompts some phone calls whenever they show up, because they're mightily confusing. So one bird that I promise Mark Robbins, who's a curator of birds over at the KU Museum of Natural History, to put on the website every year to get you guys to be on the look for, is the hooded oriole. We are long overdue to have a hooded oriole show up in our area. Now, notice this is a picture taken in Arizona, but these are more southern orioles, but we're expecting one to show up at some point at a feeder in our area. Now, you look at that bird, and when all my birders at all my trips, when I say that's a hooded oriole, they tend to look at me and go, I don't get it. You have to think of the orange as the hood, because you usually think of the black as the hood, but in this case, the orange is the hood where the name came from, hooded oriole. So, and yes, that big, extensive black throat, similar to that young male first year male orchard oriole, but this bird is orange. This is they're not yellow green like that first year male orchard. This bird will jump out at you, and he has a massive bill, big bill compared to the Baltimore Oriole. So be on the look out for that. Snap pictures if you think you have one. Send them to us if you will, because we would love to document that for official purposes. So yeah, be on the lookout for the orchard oriole. Now, pretty cool. Another of the orioles that can show up here, but is very rare, is the Bullocks Oriole. The Bullocks Oriole is the western counterpart to the Baltimore Oriole, and a brilliant colored bird, but has a lot more white in the wing than the Baltimore Oriole does, and doesn't have the complete black hood that the Baltimore does. So that would be very rare, but it can happen. We had one photographed up in northern Missouri during a snowstorm one winter. It's pretty crazy, that the Bullocks Oriole. But be on the lookout for these ordinary birds. We always want you to, if you see something that you don't recognize and you pick it out as different, use that phone, something, just take a quick picture and send it over, because we would love to document it for you if you have something that's really rare at your feeder. So, all right, so that's Orioles, the families, and the bird that we're going to see here, who they're related to. And now I want to answer some tips that come in every year about the feeding part of it. All right, attracting Orioles. The more orange color, the better. As we say with hummingbirds, the more red color, the better. Red and orange are great colors to attract hummingbirds and orioles. So that the feeder itself, are going to be orange pretty much no matter what. But if you add color like this orange hood, then you increase your chances of getting it. Plus, like this morning, I didn't have a hood on my jelly, and it was completely full of water, and I had grape juice out there instead of grape jelly. So, and then ant nectar protectors that keep the ants out, because ants love jelly too. And that is, I like to hang my nectar protector above my hood, so this way it can catch rainwater, and the ants come down. This will be hooked to my shepherd's hook, and they come down. They can't get to across the water there. If you put you can put it the other way with the nectar protector under the hood if you want. That works as well. But this, one of the things that does is that puts the hummingbird the Oriole feeder further down, and it less protection from the rain. So I like my feeder a little tucked up better underneath my hood, so for the rain protection, and this to keep the ants out. Now, this is the #1 selling Oriole feeder that we have ever had. I mean, it is the Oriole Fest, and I say it's pretty much the original Oriole feeder. Easy to clean, really important. Clean your feeders. It's top shelf dishwasher safe, I think. I'm pretty sure it is. I said that. As soon as I said that, then I questioned myself. But you can wash it out. and clean it. This is for the sugar water. Remember, Oriole feeders, Oriole nectar is typically 6-to-1 ratio versus the 4-to-1 that we give to hummingbirds. But I can warn you, if your Orioles ever taste your hummingbird nectar at 4-to-1, they won't drink the 6-to-1. So you know, once they start doing that, you can go ahead and put the same in both of them. But you can, it's got divots for jelly. And also you can skewer an orange halve with the stem and stick it through there. You can see that better in the picture on there. And also on this picture right here, this is an Oriole Fest in action. This is what it looks like fully loaded for the Orioles, and this is an male orchard Oriole coming in there, and they love this feeder. So they made the purchase bigger for them, and I've been holding one and had a hummingbird feeder come up and drink sugar water out of my hand while I'm holding that feeder right out of the, so the hummingbirds will use it too. So. Good luck if you're trying to feed them. You know, luck is a big important thing, but timing is another. Timing is if there's a lot of things blossoming and there's a lot of insects whenever the Orioles get here, it may not be the best year at your feeders. My saying has always been, if it's good for the bird watcher, then usually it's not so good for the birds. If they're being drawn into feeders or forced into feeders, then that means there's probably something lacking in nature. If they get here and they're not very busy at feeders, a lot of times that means that they have a lot of natural food. Conditions are very good for them in nature. So we don't get to enjoy them as much as at your feeders. So, but it's really worth a try. Definitely, the Orioles are very rewarding to watch and really entertaining. So good luck with that. I know people love their Orioles. Send in ideas for other birds you want me to talk about, other programs would be great.